Hey there, you're listening to the Girls Talking Life podcast, and I'm your host, Johanna. If you're like me, you love time with friends. I always leave feeling encouraged, inspired to try something different, or I've learned something new. So why not continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends? We're not made to do life on our own. So in each episode of this show, I'll bring you a girl and her story to give you refreshing ideas to stir your soul. Let's walk this road together. Are you ready to talk life? Welcome to the show. If this is your first time listening, I'm so glad you're here. If you've been listening for a while now, welcome back. Did you know that there's a Girls Talking Life community group on Facebook? It's an extension of the podcast where we can connect and continue to grow even when we can't be with our girlfriends. If you're looking for community, if you want to join in the conversation after the show and encourage others as we all grow in our faith, get into this group. I would love to have you. Did you know that if you're a mama, you can help save childhood? We are continuing our series on parenting and family culture today. Jessica Smartt joins me to remind us how important our jobs as moms really are. Even when it doesn't feel important, we have gifts we can give our kids that will shape who they become. It is a big job. Jessica says we need to be gracious with ourselves, but that it doesn't mean we don't try to work on the things that are worth doing. And parenting our children well is one of those things. Jessica is a homeschooling mom of 3 who loves biking, breakfast food, and being the one in charge of a big fun event. She is the author of Memory Making Mom and Let Them Be Kids. Here is our conversation. Jessica, welcome to Girls Talking Life. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
We've been trying to do this for a couple different times now, so I'm so glad that we're getting to talk today finally.
Yes, blame it on COVID.
You've written 2 books, or you've released 2 books in 2 years. Tell me about what those are.
So the first one is called Memory Making Mom, Building Traditions That Breathe Life into Your Home. And I always say I didn't write that because I am like the quintessential memory making mom, but I wanted to be. So I did research on like every tradition under the sun because I looked for a book that would talk about that, and I didn't really see what I was looking for. So that was really fun to just interview different people and research, all the different traditions that you could do in your family for, food and faith and birthdays, Christmas, all the holidays. So that's really fun. And then my second book is called Let Them Be Kids, Adventure, Innocence, Boredom, and Other Gifts Kids Need. And I don't know, I think I love that one even more. I felt a little more free to be funnier and more honest. So, and they both have some really great resources in the back. The Let Them Be Kids has, a list of books to read and movies to watch and conversations to have before your kids leave home. So that's kind of a cool feature. I mean, I love them, but I am a bit biased.
Yeah. Well, can I tell you, I got both of your books and they were sitting on my dresser. And before I picked them up to read them, for a week or so, I walked past them and I thought, I don't know if I want to read that. I think I'm just going to feel bad. She's the perfect mom, and I'm going to, learn about all these creative things that she's doing that I haven't done with my kids. And that is not the case at all. You are lighthearted. And like you said, you're funny and you share your mistakes, and it's very, very relatable.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I really don't want people to feel that way. And that's why I avoid a lot of motherhood things too. Cause nobody wants to just feel reminded of all the things they're failing at. But it is I think I say in both of the beginning of the books, like, we can't do all of this. We need a lot of grace for ourselves, but also that doesn't mean it's not worth working on. Cause I think there's a big movement today of just like, embrace the mess and don't worry and give up. And, and I appreciate a lot of that. Like, we do need to be gracious on ourselves, but that doesn't mean we don't try to work on the things that are worth doing. And raising kids well is the best thing I think we could be doing with our lives as moms. So it's a fine line, but I tried very hard to make sure that people didn't set it down and think, oh, never mind, she's just, because I'm so not like, I'm really not.
You did a great job at that. Yeah.
Well, good.
So we've established that you're a mom and you're an author.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me a little bit more about you. Where are you from? What do your days look like? Who do you hang out with?
Well, I live in North Carolina, and something unique about me is that all of my siblings and my parents live in the same town, and we're actually all moving to the same piece of land,
Oh,
like a
wow.
bunch of weirdos. Like we already homeschool, let's sew our own clothes and make goat cheese. But it's super cool. Like it's a big farm land and the kids just kind of run free. We're in the process of building, so that's been fun and a little bit overwhelming. So that's, where I guess where we hang a lot of the time. I was a teacher before I became a mom, and now we have a little co-op that I've kind of helped to start, and so that's where we spend a lot of our school year. And then the kids, the oldest, I have two boys, 12 and 10, and a girl 6, and they all play sports. So we're either on a field or out at the property. So that's our life.
Fantastic. All right. I love that you're all moving to one piece of land. So fun.
Mm-hmm.
I have a cousin who has her children very close. They're not, on the same property, but they can ride the gator, to the next person's house. And I have a little jealousy on how cool that is.
It's cool. I mean, it's definitely, there are moments where, you're that close with someone. There can be tension and, this kid did that. And, even with my sisters and like, it's not like every minute you're just like this amazing, idyllic, village. But it is awesome.
We are going to talk about Let Them Be Kids today. In chapter 1, you talk about why childhood matters, and then you go on in your chapters to talk about gifts that we can give our kids. And I just wanted to read this little bit here from chapter 1. When we gift our kids childhood, the space and nurture to grow in a healthy way, we are in fact changing history. We are helping to develop human beings who are brave and self-sacrificing and have integrity, who appreciate and care for the earth, who defend the rights of the weak, who have been loved and are able to love, who've developed the intellectual focus to forge new territories in medicine and engineering and politics, who have soaked up the good old books and written some new ones, and who can lead our countries and companies and families. When we save childhood, we are literally shaping the next generation. Oh my goodness, that is such a big statement. To read that and understand it and accept the gravity of what our job is as parents, and then to not put too much pressure on ourselves as parents. Where's the balance in that?
Well, I think what I wanted to do there is, so our moms, I imagine we're around the same age. Mm-hmm. Our moms did not have all of this, like, go to the gym, be super stylish, have your house look this way, have 17 different hobbies. I mean, they were on the cusp of that, but there wasn't all this pressure that we feel to do all of these different things. And so I think what I felt like I wanted to remind myself most of all, and also everyone else, is just how important what we're doing in the walls of our home is, because it feels sometimes like a waste of time, to be honest. Like, right? Like it's not like a big pat on the back to like play Settlers of Catan with people, and like, so I don't know, for me, I was hoping it would be motivating of like, this really is worth it. And we all know that, but you can forget how important your job is.
Well, reading that statement, I mean, I loved it because I was like, wow, like this is true. Mm-hmm. It is that important.
And especially today, I remember where I was when I got the idea for this book, because I was listening to another podcast, Mo Isom, and she had written a book called Sex, God, and the Church, the Conversation the Church Forgot. And so she was talking about that. And she said the average age that a child is exposed to pornography is 11. And I just remember hearing that and being like my heart stopped. I just thought, like, what happened to childhood? Yeah. Like, what happened? And so, this book is not like, oh, gloom and doom and everything's so bad, but like, we do need to realize that this is a unique time that we're raising kids. And I just wanted people to not feel alone reading it, to know like there are other moms like you fighting this fight. Don't give up, because there's so much we have to say no to, but there's a lot we can say yes to. And so giving people a tribe of like, you are not on your own. You're making good choices when you know, don't sign your kids up for 100,000 things. And when you say no to this or that technology or whatever it is, like just trying to come alongside people and help them fight that fight.
Well, your very first gift that you talk about is adventure. Why is adventure important for our kiddos? And what are some warning signs that they're ready to be challenged?
Mm-hmm. I mean, adventure is important because some kids more than others, I might say some genders more than others, but that's not across the board, are wired to need it. And so you either can give it to them in a healthy way, or they're going to want to go find it on their own. And the world offers them tons of options that may not be the most healthy. So I think like in our home, I mean, just concrete practical example is my brother-in-law. His family grew up having Friday night pizza night. I actually talk about this in the first book of why traditions are so important, but they always had, his dad makes all these amazing homemade pizzas of like these gourmet combinations. And so he and like another couple families in the street would always do Friday night pizza night. And he said to me, that pizza night, Friday night, saved me from so much trouble because I had an out. I didn't have to go do whatever, you know, hot option was offered. I had an out of something fun. Yeah. And so, you know, that's maybe not like the epitome of an example, but I mean, of adventure. But my point being, like, we want to provide for our kids a home and the ability to have like real, true fun, like good, honest to goodness fun. And that's not going to happen necessarily on its own. Like, I think you have to like, I use the garden example of like providing the ingredients and the atmosphere. And, you know, sometimes it means that you step away, and sometimes it means you come in and say like, hey, you know, here's some water balloons, or, you know, let's all play a game, or let's do capture the flag, you know, stuff like that. But I think to answer your question, it's important because they all need it. They're wired to need it. And so helping them meet that need in a good way is so important to them developing. And then what was your second question?
What are some warning signs that they're ready to be challenged?
Oh yeah, just being like bored. Yeah. I mean, I'm the worst at this. Like when my kids were growing up, like they would be in the crib. So this is like early on. And if they start ripping apart the board books, like they're done with the board books. Okay. Yeah. They've just told you.
Got it.
So you know, kids at each other's throats. And I mean, I noticed even like yesterday, they just started kind of getting restless in their space. And so they needed to get out. They needed a little outing. And sometimes my kids will just be real uncomfortable in their own skin. Maybe they'll be emotional or kind of moody. And you're like, you know, they need like, I remember my son kind of gone through a weird phase like that. And actually the same brother-in-law was like, you know, when I was a boy, like pretty much 8 and older, like I was always playing some sort of sport. That helped me like with all my extra energy. And not that boys need to play sports, like they could, but like I think there always needs to be an outlet for kids to be meeting those. If you just like stick them in a little room, it's like having a pet, you know, or a dog. What happens if you crate a dog all the time? It goes crazy. It's going to start tearing up its cushions, and you know, so kids are no different than that. They need to be stimulated, and such a tough act, because I don't mean you have to be like a permanent party planner. They need to be bored. That's another chapter. They do need to be bored, but they also need to be given adventure. So,
well, I like how you talked about adventure in your own home, because when I think of it, I think of going out. And we took our kids skiing this past winter. My older daughter was learning how to ski in ski club. So we decided we're going to take the whole family. You know, that is an adventure to me. And then coming up this summer, we're hoping to do whitewater rafting. Those are adventures, but I need to think about smaller at home, near home kind of things to do too, I think. As you mentioned, boredom is also a gift that we can give our kids. It seems like the opposite of giving them adventure, but they actually need both. Why is that?
Well, I talked about it, how it's like a mental white space. They need, if you're in a room that's so cluttered, you can't think. And, I quote different books, but there's been a lot of studies where kids that are overstimulated, whether it's their environment or their time or overstimulated with adult conversation constantly happening, there's a little bit of unhealth that's happening in their development. And so boredom is like the mental white space where, okay, you're a little bit bored. We'll go find something to do. Like, I always find it so fascinating to think about car trips before our generation. Like, what the heck did we do when we did not have our phone?
Nothing.
I mean, if you were like me in college, right? Like when we took a car trip, it was like count the cows, like eat snacks, eat peach rings, stick your hands out the window, play dumb conversation. Like this was our life because we didn't have our, Instagram to pull out every second. And there was something so really cool about that. And what you're doing for your kids is hopefully delaying that step a little. They need to know that they're not going to have stimulus and entertainment at every juncture. Like, oh, I'm bored, put on a show. I'm bored, give me an iPad. I'm bored, like entertain me, because there's so much good stuff that happens in that downtime individually. Oh, I'm going to look out the window and I'm going to, observe nature, and I'm going to daydream and plan in my head and come up with something I want to do. Or with a group of kids, then when they interact with each other. And I always want to take time to point out, and I don't want to forget, like, I don't want people to think, well, I've already fill in the blank with some technology they maybe have like a little bit of unease with. I've already given them this. We've already set a habit of this. And I really just want to say there's a really advanced philosophical term that I use in my book called back the bus up. And you can always do that and say, I'm sorry, guys, look, we've done something wrong, like in our home, and it's on me. It's my fault. I don't blame you for being upset, but we're going to make some changes and blame a higher authority figure. I read this article of this expert and he said blah, 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 or I was talking to the doctor and he said blah, 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 but don't be afraid to do that and know that it's never too late to set new boundaries in one area or another.
I love that. And I think we've had to do that in our house not that long ago. So yeah, back the bus up.
Yeah.
We took a road trip not too long ago, and my kids did have the option to watch some shows in the back seat. But at one point they started into the alphabet game between the two of them. They're 13 and 10. And I was like, yes, I didn't even ask them to do that. I'm so excited.
Yes. That means you're doing something right.
Another gift that we can give them is the gift of grit. And you tell a really cute story about your kids taking care of your neighbor's pet.
Yeah. Most expensive job we ever did. We were just talking about it the other day because we literally lost money. I don't know if I actually said the part in there about how the dogs locked the door from the inside and my husband had to call a locksmith at 1 a.m. No. So we got paid generously and then had to fork that over and then some to unlock the people's. So anyway, point is it's inconvenient to teach your kids work, but
do you mind just briefly sharing the story?
Yeah, it's funnier in writing, but they just basically kept doing everything wrong. Like it's funny, but leaving the door open, and it was just a colossal mess. One needed like a bandage on its paw, and one shredded the cushion, and one kept barking and then got loose and we had to chase it around. I mean, and so it was a definite learning moment of like,
this was a job that your boys were supposed to be taking care of these dogs. Okay.
Yes, they were probably 10 and 8 and had signed up to care for the neighbors' dogs while they were on vacation. So everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But it was an awesome experience for us to teach them. And at one point, my oldest son was like, I don't want to have a pet sitting business anymore. It's just too hard. And we were like, no, buddy, like, it's better that you learn this now than learn later. This is a great time to try. And yeah, things sometimes they don't go great, but you need to learn these lessons. And so just the power of work. And we've been doing a new system I have on my blog. I'll send you kind of like an allowance chore system linked together. That's been fantastic. That's really helped them to kind of take seriously the work and also to manage their own money.
Nice.
Because both of those things are just so important as they get older, in
Mm-hmm.
those preteen ages and early teen. Yeah, it's always a work in progress, but that's something they desperately need, because in this day and age, they're not out milking the cows like Almanzo Wilder and stuff, So, but we have to provide them opportunities to learn that grit and responsibility and failure. And because I interviewed a friend of mine owns a Ben and Jerry's ice cream shop, and she said it's like an epidemic of, she works with a lot of college kids and they don't know how to fail. They like totally freeze up and just lose it if someone says, you didn't do something right. So she kind of was like, raise your kids so that they, are okay messing up.
Do you know of a way that we can foster that?
I mean, I think just like not overreacting when they don't do things well, or, not just like, oh my goodness, that's so sad that you like didn't win that game. And I'm so sorry. And baby, are you okay? And, just being like, yeah, that stinks. We'll get them next time. Cause I think we're mirroring, they see us. And so how we interpret like their little mess ups. And I mean, as I say this, I probably blow things out of proportion because that's kind of my personality, but just reminding them both like, it's okay. Like, yeah, you try, you mess up. That's, that's all right. We'll just erase it and do it again. And, so that they have the gumption. Yeah, it's not a big deal. I'll try it. And some kids have a more difficult time than others with that, I think.
Yeah. I think I do a bad job at that when it comes to chores not being done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I think I overreact a little. My
Yes.
husband and I were just having a conversation about that, how I can just take it down a notch.
Yeah.
How about telling our kids no? Why is that so important?
Because they're going to hear it eventually in life. And if they aren't used to it, they will be just like spoiled brats, and I mean, that's a terrible thing to say because we don't want to think of our kids like that, but it is a gift to tell them no. And that's, I think, harder for some parents than others, but it's very important that we help them process disappointment and, not getting what they want and failure and missed opportunities under our roof, because that's all like money in the bank so that they know how to do it when they, we're preparing them for adulthood. We're not sheltering them in these little like precious cocoons of success. And then, they go out in the world. So
the last gift that I wanted to bring up was innocence. And the beginning of the chapter reminded me of Corrie ten Boom's story about being on a train with her dad and asking him what sex was. Mm-hmm. And he didn't answer her at first. And then when the train stopped, he said, go ahead and pick up my suitcase. And she wasn't able to do that. And, she struggled, but she was just a little girl. And he said, that's the way it is with knowledge. This is too heavy for you, so I'll carry it until you're ready to. Mm-hmm. And your chapter just echoed the sentiments of that story so well. I guess my question to you is, how do we include our kids in what's happening, but keep that information that's too heavy for them and the weight of it off of them at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard today because there's so much heaviness. And we're constantly faced with the decision of, how do I teach them to respect all people and not burdening them with racial injustice or whatever? Or, how do I prepare them to know what to do if they see porn, but not like get them too interested in it or, right. Just overwhelm them with that heaviness. So I mean, this is going to sound like a cop-out answer, but I just always do think like God loves to answer prayers for wisdom. And so when there's a particular, like, what do I do here? I think he has promised us in his word that he will give us guidance. What we're trying to do is a good thing to raise kids that are going to go out and impact the world. And so I think if we are in a little conundrum, always, it's not a bad place to start to ask the Lord for that balance. But I don't know, as a rule, I just think your story was I love that story. And that was such a wonderful way to open this question, because there is so much that our kids just aren't ready to process. And I think it's not a maybe popular answer, but I think that giving them a bag that they can carry is one of the gifts that we can give them. And I'm just always going to err on that side, but certainly, always explaining to them things in their own terms. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, there are some bad people out there and, here's what they've chosen to do. Like, but I think the real danger is just for them to be like inundated in adult conversation.
Yeah.
Where they're hearing on the news and they're hearing you talk to the neighbor loudly about your opinions on this, that, or the other, and just not conscious. There's not a respect for them as persons. And so I think anyone who has it in their mind, is maybe will not be prone to that if you just kind of keep an eye of like, you know what, let's just turn this off for a while and let's talk about this later, So it is a tough one though. I'm with you. It's tough.
I know for a long time I did the sheltering. Like, I don't want them to know any of these words. I don't want them to know any of these subjects. Just as much as I could, sheltered them from everything. And as they get a little bit older, just kind of bringing in things that they need to know about, like you said, at their level. And even with my oldest daughter, I have conversations that I want to have with her kind of in my head. And this sounds really silly, but I will practice them.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm on a run, I might be running through when it is appropriate, like when a good time comes up for me to have this conversation, this is what I'm going to say.
Mm-hmm.
So I just have it on hand.
Mm-hmm. I think I've bought a little bit of time because we homeschool, but a friend of mine who's like does youth ministry and is really in touch with like culture right now for teenagers said, you always want to own the conversation. And so for a lot of subjects, you want to get in your opinion first. You want them to hear it from you. So I'm also not great at that, but slowly, same thing. We've been, checking off. Here's some things we want to talk about. Because like it or not, what they hear first is probably going to impact their perspective of it. So I think it is important to stay on top of it.
Believe it or not, there are just a few more weeks of school left for homeschooling. Do you take a break in the summer?
Yes, 100%.
Yes. Okay. I think my girls have 5 weeks left. So it is time to plan for summer.
Mm-hmm.
What are some ways that we can plan a successful summer with our kiddos this year?
Mm-hmm. I'd love to send you the link because I have a little like summer planning kit on my blog that I started last year when I was kind of discouraged. Last year was the summer of COVID and we were facing a lot of closures and maybe we wouldn't have a pool and, the camps got canceled and stuff. So I was feeling a little disappointed and kind of nervous about our summer. And so we set a lot of goals as a family in a lot of different areas. And when I say we, mom and dad did also. So it was like, here's some books that I want to read. Here's some hobbies that I want to pursue. Here's some physical, achievements. And I have printable worksheets on the blog. And everyone answered it. So here's some, trips that I would like to do or whatever things we always do that we want to make sure we accomplish. And it really made us feel a lot more motivated about the summer. We didn't do everything on the list, which is probably normal, but it was huge. I loved it. It gave us a little bit of purpose because I know, honestly, like it's almost harder to have my kids in the summer than homeschooling because of the lack of structure. But this really provided us with like, okay, well, you have some free time. What's on your list? Remember, you wanted to learn how to whittle better and, you wanted to learn how to cook, go find a recipe. And so I felt like we were a lot more purposeful with our time and didn't have that annoying boredom, that sometimes accompanies, especially the late summer months.
Yes. Okay. Well, that sounds fantastic. And you said you had every member of your family fill it out?
Yeah. Mom and dad did it too. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I ask all my guests for their favorite 5 so we can get to know you even better. What are 5 things, Jessica, that you are reading or wearing or doing right now that are your favorites?
Okay. So I live in the South and it's like a sin to not have a tan in the summer. So But I don't like a lot of the sinless tanners because I do try to be conscious of like what I'm putting on my skin. So I found one that's like an organic natural, but I think I'm looking a little tan. Nobody can see that but you, but
You are.
so
Yes.
I'm really obsessed with it. And it also doesn't have that terrible smell. And it doesn't stain clothes. So
Nice.
super excited about my sunless tanner. I'll send you
Okay.
the link of that. And then, I eat probably 4 times a week for lunch the Trader Joe's fried vegetable rice. Have you ever had it?
I have. Yes. In the freezer section.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you love it? It's
I
so
do.
good to me. So I add an egg and green onion and crushed red pepper, and ginger, so it has like a fresher, but it is so good. It just satisfies something deep in my soul. It's so yummy.
Oh, I love that.
So let's see. I have a link on my blog that I'll send you to, but I really value, my kids are at the age where, and, this might be like surprising coming from me, but I do like quality entertainment for them, like shows, because it's not on all day. It's usually like a treat at the end of the week or, the end of the day or whatever. But I found some really cool shows for my like middle-aged kids
Nice.
because they kind of grow out at a certain point of a lot of the kiddie stuff. And then it's like
Yes.
tough because you're like, I don't want them. And a lot of the like teenage shows are actually really terrible just in how they interact with each other and their parents.
Completely.
So I have a list, but a few of our favorites are Shark Tank, which sometimes you have to preview. They have like some, like they might have like bathing suits or something, that you wouldn't want your boys to watch. But they love Shark Tank. They love Master Chef Junior.
Yes. My daughter and I have watched all those
It's
seasons.
so good. And they get excited to go do what they're learning about, which is really cool. Like they'll want to start a business or go make something. And then the Dog Whisperer, Cesar Millan, which was like a 10-year-old show. It's super interesting.
Okay.
So those are just a few, but I have some others on there. So that's a big one. But just finding like entertaining, things for them that aren't like trash, I think has been cool. And then let's see. There's a really cool geography app that my kids use to learn to play games and learn geography. They've learned like so much of the world. It's called World of Where. And it's just like an interactive geography kind of thing. So that's been a cool add to our homeschool. And then we also love Art Hub for Kids, which you're probably familiar with.
Yes.
We love Art Hub for Kids.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's 5. Is that 5?
That's 5. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah.
I have loved getting to know you a little bit better. As I said, I really enjoyed your books. I love that they are relatable and there's so much that you can use practical information from them.
Yeah, thanks. I hope they're helpful.
Yeah, I really appreciate all you had to say today. And I hope that you enjoy your new plot of land with your family.
Thank you. Yes, we will. It was fun chatting with you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Jessica. I love her call for us to step up and do the hard work, the reminder that it is not passive, but it is worth it. Grab a copy of Jessica's book to read about all the other gifts we can give our kids and see the show notes for the links to all the posts that Jessica talked about. I am committing right now to using Jessica's allowance and chore system for my girls this summer. Ours is in desperate need of a remodel. I'm also thinking about how we can add in more adventure in small ways. If you know a mama who needs this encouragement in her earbuds, please share this show with her. And if you'd like to chat about this episode, jump into the Girls Talking Life community group on Facebook. I'd love to answer your questions or hear your thoughts on today's show. Find the link to join in the show notes. Friends, don't let the conversation stop when the show is over. Share your stories and start your own conversations with the girls in your life. I will see you back here in 2 weeks. Thanks for tuning in.